So this time around I'm going to do a video on the psychedelic mystical experience. I've had a few of them in my career of psychedelic use over the last 20 years. They're not that easy to come by. It seems like mushrooms tend to facilitate them a bit easier. Somehow, there's something more. I don't know how to describe it. It definitely has a more earthy, natural, connected to Gaia type feel to it. That's for sure. But LSD, on the other hand, which is the last substance I had a mystical experience on, 1P LSD to be exact, I would say is more cosmic. Cosmic, sacred. Well, sacred could be related to the mushrooms as well. This is a different, like a sacredness. I almost, the first thing that comes to mind is like sacred code, like being granted the ability to witness this code for yourself. Wow, I mean, I think they're all capable of producing these experiences, but they all have their different character and feel to them. It's almost as if there's a multitude of types of mystical experiences. However, this one in particular I'm going to relate to kundalini. When I first had my bad trip, back in the day, this was before the HPPD days. This was before that was even coined a term. They had no term for it. They called it being permafried or acid casualty back then or whatnot. But when I searched the terms, the keywords online for what I was experiencing, my symptoms, I kept coming across kundalini support groups. Now, I should do a separate video on kundalini and how there is just so much misinformation about that. All these new age hippies talking about, oh, I raised my kundalini today, like it's sipping on, coffee in the morning. It's not such a arbitrary activity. The raising of kundalini is going to impact your life immensely. We're talking about anything from having abilities that you used to not have, all the way up to the opposite side of the spectrum of ending up homeless or in an insane asylum, or even dead. There's people that that greatly suffer from arousing kundalini before they're either mentally, emotionally, or physically ready for something akin to sticking a fork in a light socket. As far as power goes, that degree of power, I would say that's on that level. But so kundalini and the psychedelic experience, there's so many clues and bits to this puzzle that are so intriguing. It's amazing. I was watching a lecture the other night about kundalini, And they mentioned several times that entheogens, particularly LSD, I mean, he mentioned DMT as well, but LSD in particular can cause kundalini to awaken, to rise within you. I'd like to point out that as a kid growing up, I went through a phase where I was flat out atheist, and before I started using psychedelics. When I started using psychedelics, it wasn't like overnight, but the more I thought and integrated my trips, the more I was able to confirm to myself that there's a lot more going on than something as black and white as atheism. So I'll just get to it. This recent trip I had, it was extremely uncomfortable. The first half, I felt sick. I felt like something big was going to happen. As soon as it started to hit, it felt this way. It was just something growing inside of me. I knew it was going bad quick. The confusion set in. This was 1-PLSD, by the way. Confusion set in. And it just grew more and more and more intense. And then you just imagine going up an escalator or up an elevator. You hit that floor that makes you uncomfortable and scared of heights. That one floor where you're from comfortable with your height to uncomfortable. It was like I got to that floor within 20 minutes of feeling 1-PLSD. And the climb with 1-PLSD versus LSD is 2 hours to peak, 2 to 3 hours to peak versus half hour, 45 minutes with the classic LSD. This stuff takes a long time. And within 20 minutes, I'm feeling like I'm afraid of heights, basically. And if you can imagine, 2 to 3 hours of, I don't think I can handle much more. Boom. I don't think I can do this. Boom. I'm getting too high. Boom. But high isn't exactly a good way to put it. It felt so uncomfortable. I would relate it to being poisoned. And as this, as the floors of this elevator kept climbing, I was getting more and more sick, more and more confused, more and more panicked. And about hour and a half into it was when I started looping really bad. I was already looping, but this is when it got out of control. And within those crazy loops, I would think, okay, when do you think I should call the paramedics? When do I need to call an ambulance? Now, from an outside perspective, this is ridiculous because we all know that you're not going to die from it. But within the tripping mind and the confusion and the panic and the paranoia I was feeling, this seemed totally plausible and totally reasonable. But I just kept holding on. Somehow kept holding on and holding on, and this energy was just building. I felt it building from in my torso. I felt like something was trying to get out. There was just so much violence and chaos. That's the only way I can describe it. It was a violent energy, and it was just getting worse and worse. And then finally, and at this point I'm shaking. My whole body's shaking and convulsing with panic. My heart's been pounding out of my chest for the last hour and a half. And finally, I reached this point where I thought I was gonna die. That was it. And something akin to an atomic explosion in my head just went off. Just boom. Pure ecstasy. Just pure. Now, if many of you know what it's like to be on a high dose of LSD, this wasn't a high dose, but I've been on a high dose, and this mirrors it perfectly. The confusion was insane. I couldn't string two words together. And the panic, Jesus, it was just absolute insanity. But if any of you've been there, you probably know what I'm talking about. And I've had bad trips to where the whole trip ended up that way. And then I'd calm down, and that was that. But this was different. This just kept, every time I thought it could not get any worse, it got worse and worse. It just got heavier and heavier and more chaotic. And then when I hit that crescendo, it was just like, boom. Still as a pond in my head. And all the physiological effects, the sweating, the adrenaline, the fucking shaking hands, all this. This is borderline paranormal right here. Now, if anyone is going through a traumatic event, it's going to take you a while for the physiological effects to wear off, you know? You're not going to just stop shaking. You're not going to just... Your heart isn't going to stop pounding like that. But I literally felt all of these things, boom, gone. And it was still as a pond, and I'm just feeling pure euphoria, pure of the deepest type, not like a physical drug euphoria, but like if bliss is a pure emotion, that's what I was feeling. And I was inside of a Safeway supermarket at the time, mind you. So when this happened, I first noticed that, okay, so all the stereotypical LSD trippy effects, the trails and all that, they were gone. The visuals were gone. The shaking was gone. The panic, gone. The sweating, the profuse sweating, the pounding heart, gone. And everything went slow. Just slowed down. I think before I continue, I just want to interject real quick that this is the +4 experience Shogun spoke of. The one that defies physical reality. Everything stops, goes in slow motion, and everywhere I look, there's just rays coming off, much like this light here. I put my head in front of it. Now this is kind of a harsh light. What this was like a soft, silvery glow. It was like a light it's unlike any light I've ever fucking seen in my life. These were not acid visuals. This wasn't a psychedelic visual I've ever seen. It was like that stopped. It was gone. It was like whatever this was overpowered that. The trip was gone. And from behind people's heads, just like in those old, I almost believe now, or I'd like to research now, that the halos that people saw were due to a mystical experience or some shit, like a kundalini arousal or awakening or something. I'm seeing clues, you know, I'm still trying to put the puzzle together, but those old religious icon paintings, not the ones with the geometric circle behind them, but the actual soft glow coming off. Now this glow that I saw coming off of everyone and everything, I saw the actual rays, just like there's individual silver rays coming off of people. and from behind their head, and it was a legitimate light, like there was a legitimate light source, but I couldn't see it. There was no light source I could trace it back to. I felt the most peace I've ever felt, and I literally thought I died. That was it. And I was probably, I believed at the moment that if I looked over, I would see my body laying there. This felt otherworldly. Everything looked otherworldly. But again, completely, distinctly different than otherworldly, like when you're tripping. This was totally different. Everything was going in slow motion, and it was my turn to check out when this happened, ironically. We were in line buying a few items, and right before this happened, I said, I don't think I can do this, because I'm, the panic. Somehow I was able to string that together to my girlfriend who was with me, and I don't recall what she said, but it was probably like, we're almost there, we're almost done, just chill out. Probably something to the effect of that. And then when it happened, it was right when it was my turn to check out, and I tried to buy alcohol, but I didn't have my ID on me, so she denied me sale. And I just calmly said to her, that's fine. And I smiled and I said, we'll just have the water. Like I was totally sober. I went totally sober. What I noticed when I spoke was a reverberation, there was a reverberation. There was a vibration coming from inside of me when I spoke. It was so fucking bizarre. And I noticed this soft, pleasant vibration all over my body at this time, right when I was speaking. And I literally felt like I just floated out of there. After we purchased the water, we walked out. And after this, I felt, kind of floaty, like on this different high than the drug high that was to be expected. I walk outside and it starts to wear off. This was wearing off and the acid was kicking back in. And as it kicked in, I was on cloud nine for the rest of the night. But the typical acid trippy effects that you normally expect came back, and this strange experience just faded away. I looked into it a bit. I found some information on what is called the clear white light. Timothy Leary speaks of it. Some other people speak of it. This matches up to what I understand kundalini is from when you arouse the kundalini. Another thing that I wanted to mention was how people's faces have a different character to them too. I was analyzing the cashier's face and other people's faces, and they looked fucking alien to me. They looked like, and I know that's what you would say when you're tripping on acid, right? But not that kind of alien. They looked like light beings. Like their skin had a different, it was like their skin was gone and replaced with a substance that was closer to light than matter, if that makes sense. It was so amazing to look at, to see for yourself. I cannot even describe it, but people's skin was made out of light. these are all characteristics of what I read about kundalini arousal, and I did feel this energy, just this turmoil, and then it rose up. And granted, I was tripping too hard to be able to actually like really feel in my body where this all happened, because I didn't expect it. I didn't use any protocol to awaken kundalini myself. It happened out of nowhere. I didn't expect this to happen. I literally thought I was going to die at the moment, at the time, and then this happened. And to this day, it's been almost a year, I look back at that experience and I'm like, what happened? And I've been trying to research it, and I would, I'm hoping someone else can chime in and tell me what they've experienced, if maybe they've had something similar happen, or if they know more about this. It bothers me that all these new age hippies talk about arousing their kundalini and awakening it, and like it's just doing a yoga pose and boom. This is something people, work, adept yogis take years to be able to do this. So this isn't something that it just comes to you whenever you feel like it. So yeah, I don't know. I'd love to hear from someone else that may have had this happen. I would love to hear from anyone that follows the traditions that deal with energy work, qigong, kundalini yoga, any of those things that deal with the energy body. I'm absolutely fascinated with that and would love to hear more about it. Other than that, I've had a few other experiences. I've done psychedelics many, many times, over 100 experiences, and only a handful of them have been that profound to where it just changed my whole worldview. Huge paradigm shift. Overnight. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what's going on.